Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast, live, your source of information and inspiration to promote the holistic transformation of your health and the health of our planet. My name is Dr. Benjamin Alter.
And my name is Dr. Susanna Alter, and we're both licensed naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
So if you're a new listener to this podcast, welcome. We put out 2 episodes every week. On Monday, usually I am interviewing a guest, someone other than Dr. Susanna. And then on Thursdays, we go on live in our Facebook group, Plant-Based and Stress-Free. It's a Facebook group that really is open to anyone who is looking for more health, more vitality, more well-being in their life. So if you want to come on into the Facebook group, you are welcome. And in this Facebook group, we set out a poll every week about topics to discuss, topics to understand more deeply, to support ourselves in living a more healthy and vibrant life, taking our health into our own hands, and reversing disease and promoting optimal well-being. So on that note, we just finished a whole food plant-based challenge in this group, where we dove into some really great material concerning eating foods to support the body in naturally healing and naturally reversing disease. And we talked a lot about sugar and sweeteners and beating sugar cravings and what sugar cravings might mean. And we thought it was a great opportunity maybe today to go a little bit deeper into that huge topic of sugar cravings, of sweeteners, and really understand what's going on here, both from kind of a biochemical, nutritional science perspective and also kind of a psychological perspective. So we're going to do that, unpack that a little bit in today's episode of the podcast.
Yeah, so what do you say, Dr. Ben? Should we start by talking a little bit about what sugar cravings really are, why they're not to be feared, what, the human cell was actually designed to break down in terms of fuel?
Yeah, I think we should start with a couple facts.
Okay.
And then we will, expand upon these facts. And the first fact is that sugar... Okay, back up a little bit. Sugar, we can use this synonymously with glucose or carbohydrate. It's all sugar. Obviously, we know that white sugar, table sugar, is sucrose, which is a disaccharide of sucrose or of fructose and glucose. But that being said, sorry, I just had something pop up on the computer screen. But that being said, sugar, glucose, is the preferred fuel for every cell in the human body. And maybe you've heard that cells can run on alternative fuel sources, like maybe think of a hybrid car or something. It can run on electricity, and your cells can run on fatty acids or ketones. But unlike cars that can operate pretty well, electricity or gas or diesel, the cells in your body are really designed to run off of carbohydrates or glucose. And that's just a fact. That's just something that is very well studied, understood for over 100 years, really, in just basic biochemistry.
Right. Yeah. So, we see ketogenic diets. We see the caveman diet where they say, oh, you don't need glucose because your cells can thrive off of ketones and fatty acids. But really, we see that those diets have long-term health consequences. That's really, it's a design that your body has to produce energy when there's no food available. It's meant to be a short-term solution, but it's not meant to be a long-term cure for weight loss or whatever it is that people are transitioning to these diets for.
Totally. And that really makes sense when we come back to this basic principle, this basic fact that glucose, carbohydrates, sugar, fuels every cell of the human body. So that being said, that basic fact, just take our word for it now, or open up a biochemistry textbook and read a little bit about it yourself. But from there, we can, make another kind of conclusion that, well, if glucose is the preferred fuel for every cell of the body, then sweets aren't bad. Then sweets aren't inherently bad. I think we live in a culture now where anything that has sweetness associated with it is something that we need to completely avoid from our diets. I've heard a lot of people saying like, "Oh, like is a sweet potato okay because it's so sweet and I know I shouldn't be eating sweets." And the fact is, yes, you should be eating sweets. Your life depends on you eating sweets. We have these sweet taste receptors at the tip of our tongue for a reason. It's literally what has kept us alive and evolving as a human race. And we have these enzymes in our saliva, salivary amylase, to break down starches, which are kind of a polymer of glucose, just a lot of sugars connected with each other. And we've got this saliva, salivary amylase to break that up so we can get simple sugars into our body and create energy on a cellular level. So sweet is not bad. That is another conclusion that we need to come to, and recognize that sweet is not bad. Now, we're not suggesting that you go out and gorge yourself with processed, refined, added sweeteners, by no means, but sweet from natural sources. Think fruits, think honey, think whole grains. When you actually chew whole grains, you develop a sweet taste. Also potatoes, as these starches are broken down into simple sugars, we taste the simple sugars at the tip of our tongue, and that's a good thing.
It is, yes. Yeah, and so I think at the end of this episode, we'll tease apart the healthy sweeteners versus the unhealthy sweeteners and make it really clear for you. But first, let's talk a little bit about sugar cravings, because I think sugar cravings have become this like horrible issue that so many people have to deal with. And you can look up all these sugar craving hacks, mixing coconut oil with peppermint oil with I don't even know.
I haven't heard any of that.
Eating these little fat bombs to try to curb sugar cravings. And no. That's actually going to over the long run worsen your sugar cravings, because in most cases sugar cravings are your body's authentic cry for more good quality carbohydrates in the form of fruit or whole grains or legumes or potatoes. Because, it's been so ingrained in our society to limit carbohydrates. If you look at so many health blogs about healthy eating, it's all about limit your carbohydrates, even limit your fruit, because fruit's so high in sugar. And it's just, the nutrition world has got everything a little bit backwards.
Oh yeah. And that has this kind of societal sugar craving going on. There's this big widespread sugar craving, and and then we're sold all of these junk foods that satisfy the sugar craving, and then we blame the junk foods as being the problem, where if we actually just fuel ourselves with real carbohydrate based plant foods, whole foods, then we naturally overcome these rampant sugar cravings, because we're giving ourselves not only the macronutrients that we need in the form of the starch, the glucose that fuels every one of our cells, but we're also getting the micronutrients and the fiber and all of the other things that really create a healthy metabolism, healthy cellular function, promote longevity, and reverse disease. So it's not a matter of trying to overcome or use your willpower to address your sugar craving, but it's a matter of listening to that as you said, Susanna, and just recognizing it as an authentic call for fuel and giving your body the real high quality fuel that it deserves, and not being ashamed of craving sugar, not feeling like, oh, I've got to, I'm craving sugar, but I'm just going to eat spinach. Or I'm just going to what's something else that's really bland and not, I don't even know.
Cauliflower.
Yeah, just cauliflower rice. Yeah, I'm just going to eat a cauliflower rice saute with spinach because I know I shouldn't be eating anything sweet.
Or grilled chicken breast and steamed broccoli.
Yeah, or your asparagus and salmon, or just your bulletproof coffee, whatever it is.
Or a Diet Coke with artificial sweeteners.
Oh boy, well that's a whole nother topic, right?
Yeah. And so, it is important to also mention that for some people, there is also, the potential that they've fallen into what we call the pleasure trap, where they've gotten in a habit.
Well, we don't call it we call it the pleasure trap, but it's called the pleasure trap by Dr. Alan Goldhammer and Dr. Doug Lisle. They wrote a book called The Pleasure Trap, which is a great read.
Right. No, I did not coin the term, but I refer back to the pleasure trap as it's a common place people can fall into when they're used to eating lots of processed foods with both lots of sugar and some oil and a little bit of salt, all three ingredients to really hit those taste buds in the perfect way.
The trifecta.
To get you hooked.
Yeah.
And so, yes, there is this element as well of, people craving that hyper palatable sweetness in the form of a donut or a pastry or whatever form that comes into. And the only way to get out of the pleasure trap is to eat whole foods, whole plant foods. So you can still satisfy your sugar craving with fruit, with bananas, with mangoes, with whatever natural whole food, sweet food you have, but just don't continue to feed that cycle with more processed sugar.
Yeah, there's a couple things that I want to kind of emphasize that you just brought up, Susanna. One is that like donuts and cupcakes and cookies and those kind of things, which we really pin down and label as sweets, and they are sweet, and they're sugary treats, and there's a lot of sweeteners added to them. But if we look at the caloric makeup of most of these junk foods, they're mostly fat. They're mostly a bunch of, obviously not healthy whole food fats, a lot of oils, a lot of, lard and nuts and seeds sometimes, but it's a high fat food, a donut. It's obviously fried. And there's also processed added sugars mixed into that. And that's really the perfect metabolic poison for our system, because we're designed to be fueled on carbohydrates, on glucose. And when we add a big fat bomb in there as well, that disrupts our ability to actually metabolize the glucose, the carbohydrates efficiently as we need to create energy from that sugar. And then, we get a rise in blood sugar, and then we can measure that with a finger stick or with a hemoglobin A1C or something like that. And it's like, oh no, blood sugar's high. What the heck do we do? Oh, well, we better cut down our blood sugar, or we better cut down our sugar intake rather. And the way to do that is to just go on a low carb diet, right? Well, it turns out that the blood sugar is high is because of insulin resistance, which has to do with a high fat diet, a high saturated fat diet. So it's not just like sugar is high in the blood, cut down blood sugar and everything's going to be okay. We need to get to the root of the issue. And I think a lot of people just see, back to kind of my point about the donuts, people are like, oh, I need to stop eating donuts. And it's like, yeah, but you don't need to stop eating donuts because of the sugar content, even though it is, junk sugar, processed sugar. But it's really the fat in the donut that is creating the problem. And this was exemplified 70 years ago in a study by Walter Kempner. Dr. Kempner looked at patients who had end-stage kidney disease as a result of diabetes, and he put them on an extremely low-fat, low-protein diet of rice, white rice, table sugar, so sucrose, and fruit juice. And every one of these patients with kidney disease, their kidney function got better, their blood sugar control got better. And that really kind of proved to some degree the point that sugar isn't the issue. It really isn't the issue of metabolic syndrome, of diabetes, of kidney disease, and all that kind of stuff. And still, as we see it today in the conventional perspective, conventional paradigm, the low carb diet is the diet of choice to manage diabetes and manage blood sugar issues. But that is, all it really does is manage the condition. It doesn't do anything about reversing or getting to the root cause of the condition.
Right.
So anyways, I just went on an insulin resistance
Yeah.
diabetes tangent, but back to the sugar cravings, the healthy sweets and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What's next?
Well, basically, we just don't want you to lump, fruit smoothies and fruits and potatoes and whole grains into the same category with donuts and cake and churros and what are some other?
I don't know. You get the idea.
You get the idea. Not all carbs are the same, and not all sweets are the same. And so we have been getting some questions about what about stevia and what about this, and so is now a good time to dive into that?
Yeah, well, the other thing, sorry I went on such a long insulin resistant tangent, but the other thing that I think is, you brought up is the pleasure trap. So let's talk for a minute or two about dopamine, about these ultra hyper palatable foods that really is the combination of the salt, the oil, and the sugar, like Reese's peanut butter cups and Twix and your donuts and like all these things that really do hook us. And they are hyper palatable. They're designed, we know this, that they are designed to elicit an extreme ultra hyper physiologic rise in dopamine. So dopamine is this hormone that, is in our brains, and it's actually there it's there for a lot of reasons. And I don't want to get into the neuroscience of it, but when we eat anything, we get a rise in dopamine. And when we eat something that's hyper palatable, super sweet, super, it's like that, triggers that feel good response, we get a super high rise in dopamine. And we're designed naturally to get rises in dopamine. It's not a matter of just trying to flatline our dopamine at every meal, but our dopamine should be physiologic. It shouldn't be hyper physiologic. It shouldn't be extreme. Because when we eat, Reese's peanut butter cups or something like that, and then we have an apple, then the apple barely ramps up the dopamine, and it's like, what the heck is this apple? But if you like, this apple is nothing, this apple's garbage, I need my Reese's. But if you give an apple to someone who isn't in the pleasure trap, who has natural, healthy dopamine responses, that apple is going to put them in a healthy rise in dopamine. And they're going to be completely satisfied by that apple. So that is really the physiologic addiction that can happen when we're talking about ultra hyper palatable processed foods. And it's just a matter of giving ourselves 7 to 10 days to recalibrate our taste buds, and then eating real foods, eating whole foods for those 7 to 10 days. And then that apple, after 10 days of going without Reese's peanut butter cups, that apple is going to give you that dopamine response that it naturally should, because it's super sweet, just as the sweet potato or any other whole real food.
Yeah. And so, we've talked about kind of two different causes of sugar cravings here. One of them is this kind of addiction to the hyper palatable sweets. And the other is because maybe you've been on a low carb diet for a while, and maybe your glucose stores, your glycogen stores in your body, in your liver, are low. Glycogen is really the storage form of carbohydrates that our liver holds on to for times when we're in between meals and not eating. And so we rely on that glycogen to help keep our blood glucose levels regular between meals. And so if that storage is low in your liver, then yes, your liver is authentically going to be saying to you, "Hey, eat some more fruit, eat some more potatoes. I need some more fuel." And so those are the two kind of different causes of sugar cravings, and both of them have the same solution, which is just to eat good, whole, clean foods
that are carbohydrate filled, that
Mm-hmm.
are carbohydrate dense. Think fruit, think potatoes, think whole grains, these kind of things.
Exactly. This is really what the diet should be based off of. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of our listeners are probably wondering, well, what about honey?
Yeah,
And what about maple
and now
syrup?
now it's a good opportunity to get into that. And we love natural sweeteners. um, and we don't I think how do we get into this? I think it's important to focus on sweeteners that have nutrition in them. That's really the rule to live by. Every time you put something in your mouth, like food in your mouth, it should be nutrition. It should be nutritious. It should be nutrient dense. And the nutrient dense sweeteners that we enjoy are honey, even though it's not vegan. There are more ethically sourced honeys available and more junk honeys, but a good honey is going to be really nutrient dense. It's going to be antimicrobial. It's going to be nutritious. And then the other nutrient dense sweetener that is completely natural is like maple syrup. That's kind of the other go-to, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then
That's high in antioxidants and minerals, especially if you get grade B, which is kind of hard to find in the supermarkets. There's typically more grade A, but grade B retains more of its minerals in it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then honey and maple syrup, and then we start to kind of take a dive in nutrient value into like coconut sugar. It's like still got some nutrients, some minerals in the coconut sugar, but it's more processed than maple syrup. And then agave is pretty hyper processed, actually.
No agave.
No
We say
agave.
no to agave.
You could probably find some more naturally, more minimally processed agave, and then like cane sugar. Yeah, there's like organic cane sugar is all the rage in terms of sweeteners, but it's still pretty stripped of its nutrition. And oftentimes, the other thing, a lot of these processed sweeteners, the issue is that they use chemicals in the processing, and then that gets into our bodies as well. And I know anytime I eat even organic cane sugar in a minimal amount, I feel it in my body. Um, and then there's like stevia, which is a natural.
Well, but
Yeah.
you're just kind of going with it. So
Yeah.
I just want to take a step back
Okay.
and just kind of put this all in perspective for people. So the way that we see it is that best case scenario, you are using whole foods to sweeten whatever you're making.
Oh yeah, dates is ideal, right?
Yes, yes. So for example, we sweeten our morning mushroom beverage by blending in some whole dates into it. And you can make like a muffin this way. You don't
Totally.
need sugar in it.
Yeah.
I made for Christmas a kind of spice loaf that used just dates as the sweetener. So this is really best case scenario. Then next, next best is the honey, is the maple
Yeah.
syrup, because they are.
I forgot that whole real food thing. And then like other dried fruits as well.
Yeah.
Dates are, probably the sweetest dried fruit, but figs, yeah.
Exactly,
Mulberries.
mulberries. But yes, so then the next best case scenario are the honey and the maple syrup, because they're so high in minerals and nutrients and other, beneficial properties for our immune system and things like that. But also, these sweeteners, they don't contain the fiber like the date does.
Yeah.
So it is more rapidly absorbed into your system. But like we said earlier, it's not really an issue if you're eating a good, clean, whole food, plant-based diet, because your metabolism should be able to handle that, more rapid absorption of that fructose, that glucose.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then so, like stevia is an herb. It's a plant, and if you can like pick a stevia leaf and chew it, and it's super sweet. A lot of the stevia products out there are hyper processed, just ground up, ultra finely ground stevia, and it's super sweet. And the issue that I have with these processed, refined, but still quote unquote natural sweeteners.
Like xylitol.
Yeah, that's kind of in another category.
Yeah.
But like the sugar alcohols, but these things that are, 0 calorie, zero, like just kind of marketed as healthy, quote unquote natural sweeteners. The issue that I have comes back to like the pleasure trap. A lot of people are hooked into this necessity for ultra sweet stuff. And once again, sweet is not bad, but we want to recalibrate our taste buds so that dates, so that honey, so that maple syrup, so that these really, more health filled, nutrient dense sweetener options do sufficiently completely satisfy us. And so I like to really get my sweet fix from real food. And stevia, it's like when it comes in like a dropper bottle oftentimes now. It just doesn't feel good to me to assault my taste buds with that sort of processed, not real, not whole food. It might not be so bad for your metabolism or anything like that, but it certainly kind of promotes that pleasure trap that a lot of people are stuck in.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you can also kind of look at the sweeteners we've mentioned so far, I guess in my head I kind of categorize them in terms of great, you can eat all the time, like dates.
Yeah.
Great, eat all the time. Then there's honey, maple syrup. Good. Have a little bit occasionally, or maybe even a little bit every day.
Yeah, if you want
a little bit.
Yeah.
Not, don't just like douse your fruit with honey or whatever. Don't abuse it, right? And then coconut sugar is like, yeah, even more limited, like special occasions, like a spice loaf at Christmas. And then there's these like stevia things, and it's like, hey, every once in a blue moon, if a friend offers you a chocolate bar with some stevia in it, yeah, that's fine. But it's like, I wouldn't recommend it being a staple in your diet, because it is going to keep surging that dopamine in your brain.
Yeah, and that it's a personal journey.
It really is.
It really is a personal journey, but we love the idea of supporting people in really being totally nourished and fulfilled and satisfied on real, natural, whole foods. That's really what it's all about. So the more that we can focus on that, the better. And all of these other kind of slightly minimally processed things, they are treats. Some of them are better than others. Hopefully this kind of allows you to categorize these sweets in a way that feels good for you. But the first thing that we brought up, sweet does not inherently mean bad. We just want to get our sweets from real foods and not fall into this pleasure trap. and not fall into the empty calories and empty nutrition of sweet. And using every time we put something in our mouth, it should be promoting our bodies in the direction and pushing our bodies in the direction of health and healing. That's really the opportunity that we all have.
Exactly.
So any last words, thoughts?
Just quickly, I really don't like artificial sweeteners for the same reason that it will spike your dopamine and just, keep you in the cycle of really craving those hyper palatable foods.
And they have a lot of negative side effects, promoting neurological issues and migraines and all sorts of chronic disease. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then we mentioned earlier, we're not a huge fan of the cane sugar products. Some amount of blackstrap molasses is fine because it's so high in minerals.
More nutrient dense.
Some people actually take a spoonful of it every day for their iron as a natural source of iron. It's not necessary. For us, we don't really use molasses. But I just wanted to make sure that we covered all the major sweeteners.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah.
And if we missed one, feel free to comment and let us know. And we'd be happy to even dive deeper into this. We know it's a huge topic. We know that a lot of people are trying to address their sugar cravings, and hopefully this provides a little bit of insight. And sugar cravings are not something to run and hide from. They're something to perk up and listen to, and not be afraid of eating sweets in real whole food form. That's really the key to your health and to your success in life.
Yes.
So on that note, we appreciate you being present with us for another episode of the Alter Your Health podcast live. And if you haven't yet done so on iTunes or YouTube or wherever you're tuning in from, we'd so appreciate a rating, a review, subscribe, share this with someone who maybe struggles with sugar cravings as well. And feel free to come in and join the plant-based and stress-free Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/alterhealth. All right. That's all I got.
That's all I got too.
All right. Then peace and love, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye for now.